Hasn't so recording started, but we just now have people coming in, and people are going to be coming back and forth, and that's great. We're going to get started, and let's go and have hello there. We're going to have an interesting conversation. So without further ado, as people are coming in, hi everyone, welcome to another event of the DTech Showcase, partnered with Alitheon. I'm Yoav Joe, the moderator of the event, and we here have an awesome panel. We have Roei, CEO of Alitheon. We have Jeffrey Smith from Parker Aerospace. We have Aimee from Mirini, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, and yep. We have Sabrina from Heraeus. And what we're looking to hear today and what we came to discuss today is problems and constraints that people are having in their supply chain, in the authentication and serializing and I'm going to let Roei go deeper into it, but very different industries, and I'm going to let each one of the kind of panelists talk about their fields and the challenges that they have. But what we thought was cool is they all kind of consolidate into a core problem that we're going to see what exists in different industries. How do we solve it? So I'm the least important person here, so I'm going to let Roei introduce themselves and then the rest of the panel, and let's go have an interesting discussion today.
Cool. Thanks, Yoav. Hi, everyone. I'm Roei Ganzarski, the CEO of Alitheon. We basically fingerprint items is the easiest way to say it. So just like fingerprints for people are a sort of identification or even serialization, because every person has unique fingerprints and they're persistent, you can identify people, track and trace them, and so on based on their fingerprints. We do the same thing for items. That's who Alitheon is, based in the Bellevue, Washington area in the northwest of the United States.
Jeff, feel free to introduce Parker.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my name is Jeff Smith. I'm the leader of the digital product programs for Parker Aerospace. We are one group within the Parker Hannifin Corporation. I think our annual turnover is somewhere around $6 billion. We are on, essentially, we make parts for aircraft. We are on essentially every production military aircraft and every production commercial aircraft. And my mission here at Parker Aerospace is to essentially answer two questions, which is why and how do our parts fail? And so that leads me down a path of data science. The other one is where do our parts go after we make them? And that leads me down a digital thread conversation, which is how we had connected with Alitheon. And that's a little bit about me, and I'll turn it back over to you.
So Aimee, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Thanks, Yoav. My name is Aimee DeMarais. I'm Senior Director of International for Mirini Skin Research. Very different industry than Jeffrey and Sabrina. But yeah, as Yoav, as you pointed out, we do all have commonalities with our products. So Mirini Skin Research, as you may have guessed, is we make skincare. So we make a series of about 60 to 70 different unique products, which prior to 2018 were the main source of sales. Point of sales were business to business, professionally dispensed, mainly doctors' offices and medical spas. Since the pandemic environment changed some consumer behaviors, we are now omnichannel. So we still are very much rooted in professional dispensed arenas, doctors, medical spas, and some spas as well. We also provide the opportunity to our domestic resellers and international resellers to supply the products online direct to consumer. That opens up huge financial opportunity, but it also opens up the potential for gray market. So we are going to be using the Alitheon software to, we're still at a point where we're fairly small, fairly boutique firm. So authentication or proof against counterfeiting really isn't an issue for us yet, but we're trying to prepare for the future when counterfeiters see the brand as something they want to copy. But right now, our main goal is to be using this technology for serialization. That way, just keeping track of who Genmarini has sold the product to all the way down to the end user. Presents kind of a unique opportunity for Alitheon too, because we have everything in unit cartons, which is a two-dimensional surface rather than a three-dimensional surface, which I think the technology came from. So we've been working closely with Roei and his team, and are so far really, really impressed with its performance.
Awesome. And last but not least, Sabrina.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Sabrina Karib, and I'm the Director of Sustainability for Parker Aerospace, which is one of the leading one of the leading refiners across the globe when it comes to gold. We are Swiss-based, and we belong to a German group that's more specialized in the platinum group metals. So altogether, we cover all the precious metals. And us specifically at Parker Aerospace, we offer a wide range of services that goes from the refining of raw material, raw gold, which is called doré, to basically manufacturing the cases for your luxury watches.
Wow. Okay. So thanks for everybody for the introduction, and let's dive through the first part. We mentioned serialization. That's a long word. I can't say it 5 times in a row. What is it, and who cares, and why? Why should we care about it? Take your pick who wants to start.
Well, I'll throw in our perspective, and then the rest of the team can go in. So serialization basically is, as it said in a long word, being able to identify each and every individual item within a series of items. So as opposed to saying, I have 1 million of these markers, I can actually say this is marker number 12. The reason you do that are multiple, everything from understanding where your parts are in your production line, so which machines they went through. So at the end, let's say if there's a quality issue, you know exactly which parts went through which machine, so you know which machine to address, as opposed to try and guess. It goes to recall issues, it goes to anti-counterfeit and gray market. But basically, it's the ability to identify each and every item within your portfolio in a very simple manner. So that's the idea of serialization.
So as long as the parts are kind of similar, what's the difference? Why do I care as a consumer, or who needs to care that this is either number 1 or that this is just 1 item out of a batch? Aimee,
I can explain that. So I think it's very
Sabrina.
easy.
Yeah.
I think for gold, it's very easy to explain. Serialization in the world of gold is nothing new. You have to, by law, in any case, have to have a specific number, a specific mark hole on the bar before being able to supply it to the international market, right? So one may wonder, well, then why look at another tool to serialize your gold bars? Well, because you would want to make sure that you as a consumer, when you buy a gold bar, it's really a gold bar. And you might want to secure that for 2 reasons. The first one is that you might want to be sure that when you buy gold, it's actually really gold. It's not a counterfeit. It's not that you paid something for the price of gold and inside it's actually another metal of lower value. So this is going to help you secure this part. And then if you are more into, looking at the aspect of human rights and sourcing aspects and want to be sure that the gold you are buying has been sourced a certain way, you might want to have this information attached to the number or, the specific mark that you will put on this bar. So I would say that for gold, it's very easy to understand why it matters to know which bar you have booked.
So it sounds all of you come from an industry that has higher or lower levels of regulations, whether it's the consumer preference or whether it's actual law. Jeff, it sounds like some measures are being taken today. So what's the difference? How far do you need to adapt? Give us some light on that.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, so certainly, as you would imagine in aerospace, there are just rooms full of banker boxes of paper that are associated with every aircraft, and everything on it is serialized. So if something happens to it, you can trace it back. Now that's really great, but what I really see on the horizon here is the sense of, much like the point earlier, is I'm not talking about something that is similar to or like other pieces. I mean, for us as a manufacturer of parts, once a part comes off an aircraft and it gets repaired, there's a whole industry of people that will go and do those kinds of activities. For us, we would like to ensure that our part and all the internals within that part are actually authentic and they've come from us. Because there is this whole area of parts being diverted to unfavorable parts of the world. There's conflicts that are happening, and how do we ensure that those parts stay within the places that they should be? Whenever we have a part that comes to repair, being able to open that up and being able to use this kind of technology, we can ensure that some of those important parts inside of it are the exact parts that it went out with. So, yes, there's serialization that happens in the aerospace industry, as you would imagine, but being able to get to a higher degree of precision. So, for instance, I think this was brought up earlier, this notion of precision recall. So the ability to know, hey, if I need to recall something that is from a specific lot or went through and is machined on a specific machine, this then gives us the ability to do that without having a large archaeology experiment to be able to find stuff like that, which is the way that looks like today. So it's a bit of, for us in the aerospace industry, moving from a manual paper process to a digital and automated process to get greater levels of precision and accuracy. I don't know if that helps.
How often does it happen that a part or a complex part runs through suppliers you'd prefer they're not, wouldn't touch it, or how often does somebody use parts that are not from the original manufacturer? Like, how big of a problem is it?
Well, I would say that, relative to, quote unquote, a problem. I mean, once somebody, owns an aircraft, if you imagine a brand new aircraft, typically all those parts are going to be authentic and from the OEM. Once that then moves to a secondary owner, then you have situations where a part on an aircraft, I think the average, and maybe Roy can correct me, but that part may be repaired as many as 4 times in its lifespan and go back on that aircraft. And so, there's a whole industry of people that do nothing but repair parts. And so you have a choice as the owner of the aircraft to essentially send that to whomever you want to, much like your automobile. I can either take it back to the dealership or I can have somebody else work on it. So, for us, it's about securing our own supply chain. In the sense of, if the nameplate on the part is from Parker, we would like to ensure and be able to move with a certain degree of comfort that everything within that part is something that we have created and delivered to them. So, customers have a wide-ranging set of options around repairing parts in and of themselves. But for us to be able to warrant that part, we'd like to know that the part itself and the things inside of it were things that came from us.
And just to add to that, in terms of parts, you mentioned, Jeff, that a part could be repaired 4 times and go back on that plane. It could go back on another plane too. And then the traceability really becomes critical. And to take it to a complete other side, my wife likes to buy a lot of creams. I'm always amazed how in my shower corner, I have 1 bottle that does everything. And in hers, there's 13 bottles, 1 for each thing. Now, no judgment, but Aimee, I'm sure you're happy about that. But if you think of it, as a consumer, she would want to know, what am I putting on my face, on my body? Did it really come from the company that said that this is what they used? And going back to Sabrina's point as well, where was it made? What type of chemistry is in there? Who made it? Was it made in some country that care less about the chemicals they're putting into that cream or not. Serialization, as you can see, is really, and I'd love to hear from Aimee kind of how they look at the world of what am I putting on my face. But serialization really helps you make sure, because the word provenance comes to mind. Where has my product been? Where did it come from, really? Not where is it written on the bottle that it came from, but what's the path of its life until it got to my hands, let alone where it's going after. But what is that path, and how do I make sure it really is what it says it is?
Roy, this is a great point. Within the skincare industry, especially since the pandemic, certain areas, certain countries, consumers are really becoming savvy and really insisting on just that, understanding where their product has come from and where it's been sourced, and even how many people it has passed through. For instance, we always look to China. China consumers are unbelievably savvy, and they're really trendsetters in terms of what skincare brands are, what attributes skincare brands are going to feature or create. We look to those China consumers first. They were the first to buy online, and therefore the evolution of their buying behavior is the fastest moving of any consumer in the world, really. So as of right now, for instance, we have an international network of 30, 40 plus distributor partners, one of which is based in China. They are already placing a kind of old school QR code sticker on each and every unit because China consumers insist on it. They want to be able to take their smartphone the moment that they get that product, and they want to be able to trace it all the way back to the brand source and know how many hands has it passed through. Is it 3? That's acceptable. Is it 6? That's probably unacceptable. That probably means that that product might have come through gray market, or it may even be not authentic. Also, QR codes and even RFID tags, they're not tamper-proof. They sound like a good idea, but they can be tampered with. This technology can be kept secret, for lack of a better word, from a distributor supply chain. So it could be the intellectual property of the brand, or it can be shared with your distributor in a certain area so that they can use it all the way down their supply chain, all the way down to the consumer level to gain higher consumer confidence. As companies grow, especially in this industry, it becomes more and more tempting for counterfeiters in certain countries. I forget who just mentioned this, and the potential for those counterfeiters to illegally ship product to unfavorable parts of the world where they can spread even further becomes higher and higher the more popular your brand becomes. So what we're choosing to do is really try to nip that in the bud and address it with our distributor network. Hey, we have this technology that we're instituting now to protect you, to protect your accounts, and to protect your consumers. So when we grow, when we get larger, it will be easier to address any problem if and when it happens on a more immediate level.
And what's really interesting, I'm sorry, for me, is if you look at the 3 companies that are here, you might struggle with some on, why is this even important, et cetera. But I look at kind of the provenance issue all the way. So I think Parker Aerospace, clearly, right? You don't want, forget a fake or a gray market. You just don't want the wrong part being installed on a plane. And that's happened too many times, both in the military and civil side, where planes have crashed and unfortunately people have died because a mechanic by mistake misidentified an item and installed it in the wrong place. And that could be catastrophic, right? So that's an obvious one. Skincare, it's just skincare. Who cares? I can buy one 30% cheaper but from some other market on the internet and it's just as good. Maybe it's not. Maybe what you're putting on your face will create some sort of scene from Indiana Jones, right? But years down the line when your face starts to melt or something, I don't know, but you're putting things on your body. And the one with gold, which is really interesting to me, and Sabrina mentioned it, that Argor now also makes gold cases for watch companies. So I think, what's the problem? It's a watch rich people can suffer. That's not the problem. If you buy a fake watch, or the watch that you're buying, you don't know where that material came from. You may be supporting child slave labor in mining illegal gold, or just not even real gold. Children being used, or labor being used completely illegally in sweatshops, making these watches so that people can think that they're buying them, especially since COVID and since the whole NFT and cryptocurrency came up. A lot of people made money. What did they want to buy? They immediately wanted to buy expensive watches. And everything online went crazy with buying secondhand expensive luxury watches, except how do you know they're real? And what that supports isn't the fact that you'll lose money, which is bad, right? You don't want to have consumers lose money. But really, what did you support in terms of crime and bad behavior on the back end when that watch you bought was made out of bad material? So to me, it's always interesting to see if you really track that provenance down, it impacts everything, either directly in safety or through the provenance or supply chain in safety.
So it also feels, from what everybody is saying here, that there's somewhat of a quiet arms race when it comes to how do we protect our supply chain, how do we get
Well, it sounds like Yoav has frozen a bit, and maybe he mentioned the arms race. Maybe the Chinese have done something to keep him quiet. But yeah, there is. I always like to equate it to the computer virus antivirus. Every time someone comes up with an antivirus, the day after someone comes up with a virus for that antivirus, and it keeps getting better and better. Same thing you see with cybersecurity. Someone knows how to block a hacker, and the hacker finds a way to go around it, etc. Counterfeit, anti-counterfeit serialization is just the same. Someone comes with a anti-counterfeit hologram sticker. The next day, someone figures out how to make that anti-counterfeit hologram sticker and print them. Someone comes up with a anti-tamper-proof RFID tag, and then someone else finds a way to create an anti-proof or anti-copy-proof RFID tag. That's why, for example, at Alitheon, our key focus was, let's not use any tags or markers, etc., because someone can find a way to copy them. We have focused on the complete inherent fingerprint, if you will, of the product, similar to why not trust a badge or a passport or a driver's license, because they can be faked or handed out, or, hey, the pictures from 20 years ago, yeah, I used to have hair, and trust me, it's me. Versus when the governments and entities use fingerprints to identify people, that's exactly the reason. They don't want to trust additives that can be copied. And that's really was the inspiration for us, was if people are trusted through their fingerprints, let's trust products from their feature prints or their digital fingerprints.
So on top of that, something that I'm interested about, so customers have more and more choices, and there's more and more products to pick. It's now becoming a less competitive market. How much does each consumer in your own industries, do they care that this is the product that I'm buying and where did it go through? Don't clients just sometimes feel, this is the shelf, this is solving my acne problem, I'm interested in your specific industry. So Sabrina, if you want to start, okay, kind of how does consumer behavior walk into this?
So when it comes to gold, given the value of gold, for sure you want to know that what you buy is gold. But there's also something, we talked a lot about provenance, and that's a very important topic. But when it comes to gold, you have to understand as well that you are buying an asset when you buy gold. You are buying something that most of the time you buy because you want to make sure that you can pass it on to your children or grandchildren if they need it, or you can use it in times of difficulty. So if everything is fine throughout your life and you want to pass it on to your children and grandchildren, you want to make sure also that they can go back when they need to and sell it back, right, to a refiner, to a bank. And that compliance is stricter and stricter with time, right? So there's no chance that in the future, a compliance officer in a bank will say, well, of course, you want to sell us back your gold bar. Well, fine, just sign here and that's it. No, they will want to make sure where it's coming from, who has been manufacturing it, where was it, what was the provenance of gold, and is it really gold, right? The intermediary that you're going to sell it back to, they will want to guarantee all that before they take it back from you, before they give you the value of your asset. So you need to have something secure that will make it clear that this is what it seems to be. And this is where it's very important.
And just to add to that, gold can be used by bad people for money laundering, right? I mean, it's a chemical. So theoretically, you could use it for money laundering, and governments want to Sabrina's point, more and more make sure that not only is it the real gold and the right gold, that it wasn't used in the wrong way as well.
Exactly. As I mentioned, compliance is more and more important. And this is one tool that's helping us making it more secure for clients to buy gold and to rely on gold as an asset, as a currency.
So Jeff, I'm interested in your field and industry. How much do people care about the product, its uniqueness that it's compares to does it just work?
It's a great question. I mean, for us, our customers are, typically people like Boeing and Airbus on the commercial side, on the military side, whether it be foreign governments or the U.S. Department of Defense. I can tell you that relative to this topic, securing the supply chain is really a topic that is really starting to emerge. And, as you would imagine, and you could probably Google and find some headlines around this, is that some discovery of, errant materials in various different aircraft because, where did it come from? Did it come from a conflict zone? Things like that. So the military is really starting to hone in on securing that supply chain to ensure where did it come from. So you would imagine for electronics, for instance, various different circuit boards and circuitry. Once it comes from the manufacturer, how many hands does it pass through before it gets to the final assembly? And of course, being able to ensure that those circuit boards were not intercepted, they haven't been switched with other circuit boards, that start transmitting data to other nefarious actors. These things are starting to come up as topics because now we have the technology and an option like Alitheon to be able to do things like this. So that helps provide some additional comfort without a lot of overhead and lift, in the sense of using commercial off-the-shelf technology to put that in the hands of the people at the on the flight line, et cetera, to be able to answer that question with almost immediate response. I don't know if that helps.
And there's an interesting, or not interesting, it's actually a very sad case that happened not too long ago. U.S. Air Force F-16, and this was made public, so there's nothing secret of what I'm talking about. You can look at it at Google, as Jeff mentioned. U.S. Air Force F-16 coming in for landing. I think the engine went out for whatever reason. Pilot ejected because that's what you do. You don't have time to recover. And the ejected just fine, but the seat did not open the parachute, and instead, held onto that pilot and smashed him to the ground and killed him. Young pilot did everything right, and the ejection seat killed him. And what they found is that they suspect that the computer chip, to Jeff's point on microelectronics, the computer chip on the ejection seat of an Air Force F-16 plane was counterfeit. And so at the time of need, it didn't work. It didn't deploy the parachute. And you might think, who would take the time to counterfeit a computer module that goes on an ejection seat of an F-16? Well, apparently quite a few people, because there's a lot of money to be made in all of these electronics. And guess what? When will you know that that computer chip is fake? When it's too late. And that young pilot unfortunately died, a husband, a father, terrible. And so the ability to really know that not just what was made is real and legal and right, and what was shipped was legal and real and right, but I'm about to install it on that seat. Now people want to know, hey, is that real? Is it the right computer chip on that F-16 ejection seat? So it really touches everything. And then just recently, I think the US military found that Lockheed Martin and the Department of Defense lost 1 million F-35 parts. 1 million parts. Now, as a US taxpayer, that's very annoying because guess who paid for those 1 million parts? It's all of us. But the second part that's really frightening for me is they're not really lost, right? I mean, these are physical items. Then where are they? Who has them? What are they doing with them? Have they been maintained poorly and installed and no one knows? If we don't know where they are, we don't know how they're being used. That to me is really scary. So this whole item within Jeff's world of aerospace and defense is really critical.
Okay. Another thing that we talk a lot about the doom and gloom, and not the most optimistic last 10 minutes. The thing I'm interested in, we talked about the consumer, a little bit about the supply chain. Let's say we serialize, this is not counterfeit. Every single person here has suppliers, subcontractors, distributors. Let's say you found the part that doesn't fit. Let's see that things don't look good. You found something that's part A that needs to be in B. What do you do now? Like, obviously everybody needs to have a good relationship all through that supply chain. You found a part that's not where it's supposed to be, or you found a part that some.
Well, so I'll pick that up in the sense of, continuing with the aerospace theme, is that, the pretty standard procedure is to essentially, much like a virus, you want to quarantine that part. So you're going to put it somewhere, you're going to quarantine it, and then of course, then you're going to kick off some investigative process. So for instance, with somebody like we're on the F-35, and so if there is an error in any way, even if there's an error like in the data, like there's a dash or there's an extra character, that kicks off a research initiative, which can last anywhere from, 5 to 150 days to sort that out. But that's typically how that goes today, is that, we sequester the part, quarantine it, get all the actors involved. It eats up a lot of resource time. And so, part of the potential future here is the ability to cut that from, 150 days down to like 2 minutes, which would hopefully be where we would get to at this point in time. And look, aerospace, the reason that it is as safe as it is that there's the regulation and the process in place to manage the development of aircraft and the maintaining of aircraft. Now, now we have new technology that can help make this more efficient and also further reduce errors and increase safety to an even higher level than it is today.
Yeah.
If I may, I'll go on, because I think that the process is quite the same for us, even though we might not have the same challenges in terms of provenance. But I would say that if we identify that something that we've been supplied with is not what it was supposed to be, or does not appear to be quite okay in terms of compliance, we will first quarantine it, then launch an investigation on it, and then take measures. That will be either, well, we made a mistake and so we resume the business relationship. We might as well suspend or terminate the business relationship. But at least there's some damage control here where you are, when you are able to identify a problem early on.
And in our industry, that consequence is maybe more similar to Sabrina's comment. Right now, it's less about finding a counterfeit product where it shouldn't be, and it's more about finding an authentic product where it shouldn't be sold.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, having product found in the Chinese market that wasn't sold to the China partner, that wasn't sold to the China distributor.
Okay.
So for us, it calls into question not just product integrity, but protecting the brand integrity and protecting the business of our distributor partners who choose to take on our brand or other brands. They take tremendous risk when they take on brands. And it's really up to the brand and the distributor partner to collaborate together to ensure that that territory stays, virtually hermetically sealed, so that there's no gray market product coming in, and they have no incentive to sell their product outside of the market. That's how you grow a more sustainable international global footprint. So we believe that there will be a trickle-down effect when we announce to our distributor community that, and we're not planning on sharing a lot of details about the technology at first. We are going to say we're taking very precise and dramatic measures to fingerprint our product, which is sold to you and sold to every other distributor and reseller in our world, in our universe. And this works two ways. This works to protect you, and this also works to remove any incentive you may have coming from outside your territories to sell that product where it doesn't belong, and then, set up a consequence structure accordingly too. So let's say I catch product from Poland in China. I have to go back to that Poland partner then and say, we warned you, this is your consequence is termination of your agreement or something else. But really we think the trickle down effect will be the removal of incentive for the distributors to sell product or place product where it shouldn't be.
What was it's very interesting. What was the response of the suppliers? How did they take it?
Well, this is something that we actually are going to be announcing within the next month, but we suspect it will be overwhelmingly positive because they are the ones who come to us. And Yoav, it's a great question. They are the ones who come to us. It's really not the consumers. It's the distributors who come to the brands right now and say, this reseller or this website is selling into our market and we don't sell to them. So they're very quick to bring it to our attention, but then they don't have any solutions because they can't figure out where the product came from.
It sounds like you're able to give kind of additional brand value compared to other competitors or for the rest of the chain.
Absolutely. We are going to be one of the first in the industry to implement something like this. And from a consumer level too, you mentioned Jeffrey mentioned recalls. Consumers don't care until they do, until they buy a product that's bad and something happens to them. And then they try to report it only to come to find out they bought it from an unauthorized seller and the brand won't stand behind it. So
and it's interesting that today almost everything relies on some sort of, I'll call it paperwork. It could literally be paper, like what Jeff was mentioning in aerospace. It's literally paper that sometimes is attached to a product with a zip tie when it's in the manufacturing line, and that's what you're holding on to. Or it could be a sticker or some sort of other additive, but some sort of paperwork. The challenge is that at some point, that paperwork will be removed, either intentionally, good way, meaning when the part's going to be installed on the plane, you don't keep the paper connected with the zip tie to that part. You have to disconnect it. And the second that happens, do you still know? Now, if you're taking it off and literally immediately putting it on, yes. But normally, I think anyone who's been involved with manufacturing or service or maintenance knows that's not how it happens. The paper will be removed at some building, and then the part shows up to some other mechanic or technician or installer that assumes that what they've been given is right because that's what they've been given. And that's where all, as they say, the proverbial, all the holes in the cheese align and something bad could happen. It could also be intentionally removed for bad reasons. Hey, if I remove the sticker, you don't know if it's real or not or where it came from. Or if I scratch off the serial number from the gold bar, oh, you'll check if it's real gold, and it will be. You'll not catch that it's real gold from the Congo where child slaves are used to mine it. And so there's a lot of bad activity that's very smart in that they know if I remove that marking, then you're blind, basically, or the product is unknown. So either you quarantine it, don't use it, and maybe there's financial loss, delay, etc. Or you use it and there could be other risks. Again, that's why the key element for us at Alitheon was, how do we help companies like aerospace, skincare, precious metals, etc., do all of this without having to rely on paperwork per se?
So topping off that, something that you got me thinking, all of you have parts that are premium and are very expensive and very complex. And some of you have just like washers that are not as important, not as expensive. There's the stuff that is going to make me pretty or significantly premium products. And there's,
no,
that's a lost cause, yes. But for clients that have more hope than I do, there's the premium products and there's the ones that are just the runner-ups. The lower products usually have less margin, higher volume on them. I understand if you're selling a jet, but what about lower cost, cheaper items? Why does it matter to trace them, serialize them if they're more commoditized? So Sabrina, if you have thoughts, Aimee, Jeff, anybody?
Yes, so I don't believe that we really have projects that are cheap, in a gold refinery. So, but I would say that no matter the value, the point is that we are operating in a sector that bears so many risks that for every single gram of gold, you want to make sure where it comes from, and as a refiner, but also as a client, you want to make sure how it was produced, how it was made, where it's coming from. Did I participate in something not nice? So that's really.
Would you have clients that said, "Wait, hold on, this went through the Congo, I will not buy this product"? Like, would people refuse to transact with you based on that?
I would say that we never come to that point because we have a very transparent dialogue with our clients. So our clients know very much of our engagement for difficult countries, not talking about Congo, but other challenging countries too. So they know very well why we engage with these countries, why we believe that as a responsible refiner, we have to do so. But still, engaging with difficult places is supposed to help people. It's not supposed to help, keeping up with slavery and other things like that. So you still want to make sure how it was produced and what was made. But for us, it's rather, I would say that the solution, Alitheon, is rather for our clients to make sure that what they buy is really what we said that they would buy.
Is there any oh, sorry, Aimee, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to agree with you, Sabrina, too, is especially in developing areas, developing countries, this type of insurance policy really helps a brand trust a distributor who is located in a place like that and help them develop their business in a responsible way. It also helps us keep our prices and our discounts and incentives at a state that helps more distributors in more areas afford to begin these businesses. Gray market if nothing else, it's very expensive for brands. And it drives prices. It drives prices up annually for us. So placing that insurance policy on our product will allow us to do business in more places with, especially in developing areas. Yeah.
Okay. Is there Roei, you want to say something?
I was just going to say, I read an article just this week based on everything that's happening with luxury watches and the online market for luxury watches, that the organizations are saying that, and they're calling it now replica watches. So basically fakes, but replica watches is close to a $50 billion industry a year. Replica watches. And it's amazing that you can go online today, not even look for fake, counterfeit, or lookalike. Just type in replica Rolex, and you'll have suppliers come up and sell you their replica Rolex, which is made to the exact same specs, weight, etc., as the real Rolex, except it isn't a real Rolex. It isn't responsibly made. It isn't made to that quality. It won't last multiple lifetimes, etc. And so this is happening everywhere. It's happening in aerospace. I remember in my previous life within aerospace manufacturing companies, parts are being made in factories and countries that are not authorized to make those parts, but they do the same thing, and it's just a washer. I'll remind you that I believe one of the space shuttles was blown up because of a faulty washer. So as small of a part that you think it could be and as inconsequential, it could have a very high consequence.
But part of the solution that Alitheon offers and authenticating as a whole is you take a phone or you take a standard camera and you take a photo of the part. That Jeff, you mentioned that there's like a bag of parts that dangles along with the part. How hard is changing consumer behavior or manufacturing behavior? So someone in the audience asked like what is the solution or the change that we need to ask people to do? Because if I force people to take the part and have it in the lab, examine it for an hour, people will hate it. So how hard is it to change people's behavior that they've been doing for a while?
Oh, it's incredibly hard to change these processes. I mean, essentially, if we wanted to, kind of go up a little bit in terms of altitude about what's happening in the aerospace industry, is a sense of, look, I mean, some of these topics that we're talking about are not new topics in aerospace. I mean, essentially, the reason that we're together now is that there is an achievable way to make these things happen where we can kind of seal off some of these exits to where we can, show up to be able to, at least for my brand and my brand image, have some comfort and security that the part that I'm delivering to somebody, I have a way to communicate to them that it came from us, and I can authenticate that. Now, really what is happening is this sense of, digital transformation. I know that you've heard that topic before. I mean, for us in aerospace as a regulated industry, dealing with regulatory bodies like EASA in Europe or FAA in the United States, I mean, changing any of these processes are a long and arduous process. But nonetheless, I mean, the thing that we're looking to do is, this other topic of digital transformation, you get to this other thing, and I mentioned it earlier, is a digital thread. So the ability for me to have a thread that can span from the birth of the part all the way to the death of the part, all the way through its life cycle, and have people that touch that throughout the supply chain add to the provenance of that part. Because for me, the ability for me to understand and make more efficient or to secure it in another way, I've got to be able to access and have people add to that thread that are outside the four walls of my business. And I don't want to be able to integrate into their systems. I don't need to, access their ERP system. This is a way in which I can continue, have continuity of that thread, and have the story kind of add to the history of that as it passes through multiple hands along the way. I don't know if that kind of connects with the question, but this is what's really happening and emerging in the aerospace industry, is to be able to connect with others outside of the four walls of our business in some way.
And I'll add to that, Yoav, and to Jeff's point, and for all, everything we're talking about isn't new, right? Fake items have been around for as long as items have been around. Gray market's been around forever. The need to serialize has been around since the Industrial Revolution, which is why we have serial numbers printed, engraved, etched into products. So the problem isn't new. And we see companies at three different stages, or three kind of different categories. One, we don't have a process. We don't serialize. We just accept the fact that things get faked or they get lost and we don't know where they are. Okay, in that case, it's easy because there's no change, right? You're just creating something that now gives you value. Then there are ones who say, we have a process, but it's easy for us to change it. Let's change it. Then there are ones, and I think the perfect example, the three here on the call, aerospace, precious metals, consumer goods, skincare, where there's a process in place and it's fairly ingrained, be it a serial number will be etched inside each gold bar because it's required. There will be paperwork for each plane, each part that goes on a plane, be it civil or military. There is a barcode on every box that goes out with a cream in it. So in that case, don't change the process. What we're offering now in terms of the Alitheon system is the ability to enhance or add to that process, in the sense that now you don't have to rely on something that at this stage we all know can be damaged, erased, changed. Take that gold bar and scratch one number off, you have a challenge. Take that aerospace part and tear the paper off that says it was fixed or it's damaged, and you have a problem. Take that package of cream care, take a marker and erase the barcode, you have a problem. And so what Alitheon is doing is basically, again, fingerprinting these items. Every item that comes down the line, if you will, gets photographed. One picture, standard camera, and now a digital fingerprint. To Jeff's point on the digital thread, a digital fingerprint is created. And just like with a human, throughout my life, anywhere, any airport I go to, be it in the US, in Japan, in Israel, anywhere, I give my fingerprint, or let's say they find my fingerprint in a crime scene. Not that they ever will, but let's say theoretically, they shouldn't. They find my fingerprint, they can immediately know, oh, that was Roei Ganzarski, and here are all the other places he's been fingerprinted. So from that perspective, it's the same thing. You don't have to rely on finding that paperwork from 3 years ago, or trying to figure out which serial number was actually etched into the item, or where the barcode was or the sticker was. Take another picture of it, and the system will tell you, oh, that's item number, whatever it is, X53-4. Here's where it was made, where it came from. Here's all the life that it went through. And it's all within that one picture, as opposed to trying to rely on paperwork. So we're basically just offering an easier, simpler solution. We hope the last solution, because we don't rely on anything external, but to help a problem that already has been in existence for quite some time.
Do the people here, do you see it becoming a brand add value? So Jeffrey talked about kind of the being able to show the thread. Does it actually add brand value, or is it just, all right, we can cover ourselves in a worst case scenario?
For us, it definitely will add brand value. Yeah,
It will.
absolutely.
Sabrina, it also say how, like that's also
Well, starting from the first businesses we sell our product to, being in the US, resellers, and internationally distributors, if they have greater confidence that they are not going to be competing with, pirated product, gray market product, they have more confidence in the brand, they have more confidence in us as a partner. And so we will, on the greatest level, we will attract better, higher performing partners. Also, it will help us keep price integrity, not only brand integrity, but price integrity. So I think those are the two major factors.
Wow.
And then in the exceedingly rare case that we do have a recall, most products, if they're GMP manufactured, that very rare to have a recall. But if and when that were the case, all that much easier to do a recall precisely and swiftly.
Okay. Sabrina, you're about to say something.
Yes, first I would say that it's also adding value, in the sense that we are offering security to our clients. So Roei was talking about watch brands, luxury watch brands. We are offering something amazing when we are offering the possibility that not only do we manufacture your watch cases, but we manufacture them and sell them to you with security that comes along that will make it possible for you to fight against counterfeit, because counterfeit for gold bars, it's something very important, but I'm sure it's one of the major challenges for the watch and jewelry industry. So in that sense, I would say that we add value. And also what adds value, this solution, is, as it was mentioned before, it's not something additional that you have to add to your product. It's actually based on the very specificity of your project, and it's recognizing it and capturing it in a way that it will be using it in a very user-friendly manner. And it's not adding too much, in terms of paper trail and a lot of things to do. And when it comes to a gold bar specifically, I think I find it extremely reassuring to know that, however, regardless of how it was handled and stored, you will still be able to identify it.
I guess, my addition to that is certainly for us, we see that the follow-on benefit is strengthening our brand, because if we're able to secure our supply chain and defend and be able to track back to birth our part, that's good for us in terms of our relationship with our customer. It's been an area that we haven't been able to lean into and have a lot of confidence around that. So, but, if we're talking about the things that protect us, is it certainly, an aircraft goes down, there's going to be somebody that's going to show up and try to figure out what part was associated with making that aircraft go down. And they're going to tear that apart and try to understand what's inside of it. And so if it's got my nameplate on it, they're going to be coming to me. And so my ability to know that all the things inside of that are right and true and things that we have manufactured, I mean, that's important. That's an extreme example, but I'll give you an everyday example. So we have people that send us parts that claim warranty, or there's a defect in the workmanship.
Mhm.
And so, today it's kind of hard for me to defend that relative to the things that are inside of the part.
Mhm.
And so our ability to now have a tool where I can actually have that kind of conversation, in the sense of, I know what was in it when it went out the door, but when it came back, I don't know what's inside of that. Because the minute that I touch it and the minute I work on it and fix it and send it back out to anybody, I now have responsibility for the operation of that part. So that gives you one example. I see that, we're kind of getting close to the top of the hour, and I've been monitoring some of the questions. I see that Daniel had put a question in there around large OEMs. I can say that, look, for us as a tier one part supplier, the thing that we're looking to do in investigating this technology and working with Alitheon is a sense of not kind of tilting at windmills, but the idea of being able to engage with our large OEM customers, Boeing, Airbus, Lockheed, or whatnot, where I'm able to get out of the story and into the solution, because this is what we see this is. And so I can tell you, at least with some of our military customers and large OEMs, Boeing, Airbus included, they are interested in this topic. And they want to have the same kind of security and comfort around all of the parts, because as the old adage goes, how many parts do you need to have on an airplane? You need all of them. And so they want to make sure that all of them are on that are what they have specified, and they have come from their suppliers and are true. So with that, I'll kind of turn it back over.
And I'll just add a comment, which I think is very relevant to all three industries that we're seeing, at least as well, which is there was this huge push of the whole notion of blockchain recently in the past years, especially around COVID. And there's a misinformation, if you will, or this fallacy that blockchain protects the supply chain from all sorts of things, bad things from happening. And that's simply not true. Blockchain is an amazing technology. We use it. But blockchain is tremendous in protecting digital data. It does not protect or connect to physical items. And that's where the real risk is, where people say, oh, I protect my supply chain with blockchain. So all of my paperwork that I use is protected by the blockchain. But there's nothing irrefutable that connects that blockchain to, let's use my marker again, that says, this is actually the marker that belongs to that blockchain, not the identical marker right next to it, that may or may not be fake, old, refurbished, used. And so what we do is really connect the physical item, which we all still live in a very physical world. The planes are real, the cream is real, the gold bar is real. We connect that physical item to any digital world that you want, be it a piece of paper, an Excel sheet, or a blockchain.
Amazing. So we are at the top of the hour. There are more topics that I'd like to cover, but I want to be respectful of also other people's time. Thank you, everybody in the panel who joined. Thanks for everybody that came in and left and stayed with us. Stay tuned for the next events that we'll be showing, and we'll be aggressively marketing on LinkedIn. So if you're interested in contacting Jeff or Aimee or Roei or Sabrina, if you have further questions, feel free to reach out to us at Deep Tech Showcase, and we'll decide if we're nice enough to later introduce or pass that question. Depends on the tone and manner of how you address us. But I had a great time. Thank you, everybody. There's going to be a recording of the event later on, which we'll distribute. And again, thank you very much. It was very interesting seeing the industries come together on this common thread.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
So much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.